Well, hello, hello, hello. So we thought we'd do another impromptu live, and today we wanted to talk about the cycle of good and bad and where that kind of comes from and where it goes. So let's get into it.
All right.
All right. So you know what, you guys, I know you've all been there, right? It's really, really good for a while, and then it's really, really bad for a while, right? And so this time frame is different for every couple. You know, it could be like, oh boy, we'd have like an hour that was good, and then we'd have like 23 that were bad, or we'd have like a couple days that were good, and then we'd have days and days that were bad. And sometimes we'd have like, well, I guess the point is this: no matter where you're at, no matter who we talk to, no matter who we work with, you're wanting more. You want more of the good, but what's happening is you're always getting stuck in that rut of going back to the bad, and so you can't understand it. You constantly go, well, man, when we're good, we're on fire. And this is why I want to do it. It's not just, I mean, we talk a lot about keeping the family together and this and that, but like, if you're like us, like we saw a light, like we knew there was more potential, but we just couldn't hold on to it. We couldn't figure it out. It was always getting dark again. And what we've noticed from working with so many couples is it's the exact same mess all the time. It's one of the reasons we start our programs the way that we start our programs is we need to look at what's going on here. And basically, here it is, guys. It's pretty straightforward. The simple version is this: when you start to feel like something is going bad, then you start to go into survival mode. You start to go into protection mode of yourself because you feel threatened. And it's usually about your character. Like, am I good enough? Am I worthy of love? Do my needs matter? Maybe some of you even get right to the point where it's like you just believe deep down your needs don't matter. And this is all stemming from like a whole childhood programming thing. Did your needs get met fast enough and blah, blah, blah. But as you know, we're not going to dive right into the past. We don't care. We want to move you forward. What we need you to understand is because of that, throughout the process of growing up, entering into relationships, guys, this isn't just like, romantic relationships. This is business. This is somebody on a sports team. This is professional relationships, whatever. You start to create and add and edit to your programming to make this worse. So by the time you're in your marriage, and sometimes it's rapid like us within the first 30 days, boom, explosion and mess for the next 4 years, right? But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you guys ride it out and it's great. We'll get on calls with people. It's been incredible for 16 years, and then the last 2, or sometimes it's even crazier. It's like it's incredible for 25 years, but the last 2 months, guys, what happens is there were so many of these ups and downs the whole way through, and you're editing these programs to protect yourself. So we thought of a super, super easy example that almost everybody watching should be able to relate to, and we'll kind of break it down. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
You start, baby.
Okay. So straight up, in most homes, we've got the man who's going to be working more and he's going to be providing, and he comes home and he's proud of everything he's accomplished, everything he's delivered. I provide all this, the kingdom. Okay. And we're going to attach this not to the wife today. We're going to attach this to the children now. So, he's maybe wrestling, he's playing, maybe he's super involved, a lot better than I was. I had to learn to be involved with the children. And so he's feeling like he's doing everything great. He's wrestling, he's having a good time. And then he's also that firmer voice. If you're like me, I get really protective of Kathryn. So some of you might still be doing that. I say the kids are screaming at mama, and boom, you're in there and stern and protection. Okay. And so you think you're doing everything right. Let's just wrap that up. I know there's more to it, but let's just wrap that up into the little ball of the man. And now, do you want to talk about the woman first?
Yeah. So I think for the women, when we are working and we're taking care of most of the childcare stuff. So we're doing the lunches, we're doing the laundry, and then we're taking care of the home, we're taking care of the pets. We forget to be thankful for what the husband is doing.
Oh, you're already going there?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to describe the woman. She's done everything, and then we were going to go there. She's jumping the gun. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I need to describe it. I think women are like, yeah, they're already like, amen. Yeah, I do all of it. Yeah, and so I think that there's no God. Well, you can just jump right back in then, because I didn't really think that needed to be described.
I think it's kind of.
Or tell me what you want me to describe.
Well, I think it's really important. Like when I work with my men, I let them know like it's Groundhog Day. It's the same thing every single day, in and out. And when she's feeling like she's handling everything, including a lot for him, it's more than just taking care of everything. There's a whole sacrificial thing. Like, yes, she wanted to be a mom, but that put a ceiling on a lot of women's lives with their career and this and that. And I think that's a ground level understanding that men need to have. That makes sense.
That does make sense.
Okay, so yeah, what we need to understand is then we're having one of these low times that we're talking about today, right? So let's just say we came home and let's use the example from one of our clients the other day. So the kids act differently when you're around, right? So he's automatically feeling like she's saying, okay, well.
So let's give a little bit more detail.
Okay, sure.
So basically, the husband was home from work and the children were a shitstorm. And the wife, not intending to harm the husband, said, they don't act like this when you're not here.
Right.
Without any explanation. So that's exactly what happened.
So now we have each of you starting to feel like you're threatened. So you're in survival mode. And I'm not going to say she started it. It does not matter the who said the first comment. And I think that's very, very important to understand. When you guys want to rebuild and repair your marriage, you need to start understanding that we don't care what's happening, because there's so many of these ups and downs, and they all feed and stack, and they all make you edit this programming and become worse.
And it doesn't matter who said the first comment, because then someone said the second comment. So it doesn't matter if you're first or second, you're still contributing to the mess.
Excuse me. That's right. And so we take a firm belief that none of that ever matters. It's learning how to control how you respond. But to do that, let's start to understand where it's coming from. Okay. So in this case, she's making the comment, okay, the kids don't act like this when you're around. And so I believe, and you can say what you think. Sorry, Finn. I believe that what she's coming from a fear-based state, that she thinks or believes that he doesn't think she's doing a good job as a parent, as a mom.
Why don't you talk about how he would feel?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, you do her?
Yeah,
okay.
I'll be her. I'll be the woman.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, okay. I know you speak woman, but I speak it like it's my first language.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. So he's feeling really attacked. He's feeling like, well, because he's showing up there and he's a bad influence, or he's done something wrong, or just the fact that he's there and the providing, the wrestling, the disciplinary, like maybe even, I don't know the pretense, this is her client, but I don't know the pretense, but maybe, for example, he lashed out at the kids and said, you guys just stop, right? Okay. And that could have been, maybe he got a little rough. Maybe he just did it with his words. The bottom line is he's not controlling his response because he's feeling threatened, like he's doing something wrong. So that could mean I'm not good enough. He could be feeling guilty. This guy, actually, he works out of town. So he could be feeling very guilty because he's not actually home much with the kids. Like, so he's not actually being the dad that he could be because of the choice of profession that he took. There's all these negative threats coming in right now. Okay. And so before I carry on.
Yeah. And so where she's coming from is he comes home, the kids are screaming. Maybe he's yelling too. Maybe he doesn't know how to regulate his own emotions. Like most of us don't. Our children can be really triggering. But then she says, they don't act like this when you're not around. So he's feeling attacked and she's feeling like, I promise you, I'm a good mom. I'm a good mom. This isn't what they're like all day long. I don't tolerate this behavior all day long. They don't show me this behavior all day long. They listen to me when you're not here. They're respectful when you're not here. They eat their food when you're not here. She's trying to say all these things like, please see how great I am. Please see that I'm doing a good job. Please recognize how hard I work. So she feels like I'm doing all this work and all he's seeing is the negative. And so I spoke to her about this. She wasn't meaning to be defensive. She just really wanted to show like, hey, this isn't what our day looks like. You must think this is so bad if this is how you think I'm raising our children. I'm not. So she didn't say all of those words. She just said, they don't act like this when you're not home. He feels attacked. She feels attacked. Everybody feels attacked. And this is how that cycle starts.
Yeah, that's right. And so I'll just quickly address Stephanie here. That's exactly how I feel. It's the flip though. The kids are better when dad's around. That's good. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. That's probably the dynamic, maybe because your husband's home more, for example, in this specific example that we're talking about, the husband's away. So that could be one contributing factor. The point here we're really trying to make is that no matter what you have for these ups and downs in your marriage, so why are we so good and then we're so bad? Okay. We get to a point or a state, it could be a daily stressor, guys. It could just be, you're just tired. You slept terribly last night, kids climbing into bed. Anything can put you out of whack. And then we're not in control of our responses. Okay. We start to react based off this programming, based off this childhood programming that we started to edit in every relationship of our life. Again, not just romantic. And what happens is we then say something like she said perfectly. My client wasn't meaning to come off defensive and attacking, right? She wasn't saying he was a bad dad, that when you're around, you're fucking everything up. That's not what she was saying.
That's what he was hearing.
Yeah. And based off of probably a fear based that she's not good enough, like he's going to have a bad view of her. She says it in a certain way that then triggers him. And then when he feels threatened, then all of a sudden he's responding with defensiveness. And depending how bad this gets, I mean, this is when you start going through the real roller coasters. When you start fighting with each other, it starts to get bad. You start blaming each other. Start saying, well, actually, if you were home more, this and that. And actually, you know what, if you were just not just disciplining, but you were actually playing with them more or whatever. And
if you were more gentle with him, he wouldn't have reacted that way. He wouldn't have screamed. And then I wouldn't have had to step in and he wouldn't have hit me. And then you wouldn't have said this. And then
yeah, and our kids know how to scream because you're fighting
and
this and that. Like, yeah.
And then it snowballs into something else, and you're not even talking about the kids anymore. Oh, and remember last week you did this to me, and then do you remember last year when blah 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 blah? And it's just mayhem.
Yeah, and then that's why we always hear, oh, they always bring up the past. Well, that's because you do in all these kinds of instances, because you're going into survival mode instead of trying to save your marriage. You're saving yourself. Okay, so. You guys got to really start to think about that statement right there. Do you want to save the marriage or do you want to save yourself? That's the problem. It's not like, you can just shut this off. We give you actionable steps, of course, like you're take a deep breath. Sure. I don't believe in any of that shit. You need to learn how, clench your fist, count backwards from 10. I think all that stuff.
You know what would happen if we clenched our fists in those moments?
On those days? Oh, well, and I actually was bad with that stuff, but
you never punched me,
punch, but yeah,
no.
So yeah, the ungrit your teeth. All that stuff is just garbage, guys. Full on, just garbage. But what you need to do is start going in with an understanding. Kathryn says lead with empathy. I would say I love her through it. The point is understanding that there's a little scared little boy, a scared little girl inside. That's all that really is. If it was your child and we all make mistakes with our children, don't get me wrong, but on a whole with your children, you do try really hard not to lose your cool when you realize, and maybe this isn't all of you, maybe you haven't learned this yet, when you realize they just don't know how to control their emotions, and it's easy to forget that. Kathryn reminds me all the time, right? No,
we remind each other.
Yeah, well, that's true. So the point is,
how do you expect? That's a good point. How do you expect your children to be able to control their emotions when you can't even control your own? So that's going to be triggering, and it's going to feed into some of these cycles.
100%. So, well, what can you do about that? So in this, I want to kind of give you some actionable things since we're talking about children here real quick. But then we can talk about whatever it is that you want. You guys can fire questions and stuff too. But because we can talk more about defensiveness, blame, criticism, all these self-preservation techniques, or we can talk more about kids because that depends what you guys want. But
yeah, if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat, but we'll just be off the cuff a little bit today.
Yeah. So I know,
a little bit today. We're always just off the cuff.
So I know that one of the most important things you need to understand is that, of course, they don't know how to control their emotions. But with emotions, what do they really need, right? So if you understand that children are egocentrical, you were too, right? The world revolves around me. And that means that they're not getting their needs met in a timely manner. That doesn't even mean, by the way, that you're a bad parent. Like, I'll get you the water, honey, no problem. I used to say to Kathryn about Briar, like, why does she scream at me? I'll get her the water. I just told her I'm getting her the water. In fact, sometimes she screams at me and yeah, mostly it's Briar with me, but and Vale with you, but do this. And we're literally doing everything. No problem, baby. Got it. Here you go. And they're still screaming.
I want water now. We're getting it. This is your water.
So I think that one of the next actionable steps after understanding that is understanding this. If you can start to figure out this with your children, which this should be motivating for any father or mother ever listening. This is your legacy. They're learning how to control their emotions from you. This isn't even for your partner. But if you can practice with your children, because you should be teaching them how to run their emotions, try to do the best you can with their programming. And guys, it's most important from ages up to 5 or 7. You could probably be more clear on that. I see bunch of different things. Between 5 and 7 is where it's not as much, but you still have the rest of their growth years here, right? Brains aren't developed yet. So if you can't get along with your spouse long enough right now, practice with your children.
It's
And
going to be
then,
harder with your children.
yeah, but also more motivating with your children because they didn't do anything wrong. They just want the fucking water.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So
Using
you
that
should be
example.
highly motivated to have your own emotional regulation with your children, because your husband probably deserves your emotional dysregulation. Let's be honest, and your wife too.
Yeah, and I teach
But
men that
your children do not deserve your emotional dysregulation. So
that's right.
practicing it with your children, you should have something internal that says, okay, I can do this. And if you can do it with your children who are flying out of control all the time, you should be able to do it with your husband.
100%. It just hands down, one of the biggest tips we can give you is use your children for motivation. This is your legacy. This is something that should matter to you, should be easier for you to push off those stressors that we were talking about. I gave some examples of being
Love
tired
is
or whatever. Yeah.
actually unconditional with your child.
Yeah, that's right. You know, it's because, you know, along those lines, I talk about that all the time. Like you signed up with your wedding vows, you committed. And then people will argue, yeah, but so did they. That's why we did it. Bullshit. The vows were for you. We should talk about that one day. Do you guys even think about your vows anymore in marriage? Just throwing that out there.
Probably not.
Vows were created when the institution of marriage came in because it was from honor. That's back when reputation mattered. This is a side tangent that I'd love to explore one day. Now people don't follow through and don't care. They just quit. Divorce is too easy, right? Blame is too easy. Being toxic, accepting toxic behaviors and laying boundaries when you help them raise flags and enable their behaviors too. This goes both ways. Well, most often that programming, you're creating the same relationship that you always saw, right? Or you're trying to do the opposite. Neither of those are good examples to learn from because they were bad examples to try to copy or to try to do the opposite from. So it's not like, oh, don't do this because that's how it was. It doesn't work that way. So anyway, side note, love is unconditional with your children. So practice on your children. All right, next one.
Megan, yes, we can see names on this new platform. Can
Oh,
I
yeah,
go to the
sure.
question here?
Yeah, you bet.
If everybody sees me leaning, we have a microphone in front of us. So how do you help regulate emotions in kids? One of the kids will just shut down and shut off, and there's no getting through after that. I would need to know. We're not parenting experts. We have done some coaching. We work with a one-on-one parenting coach, and we've taken multiple parenting courses. And so we do. And I'm actually a certified early childhood educator as well. But we're not experts in the field. But I would say I would need to know what's happening before that child shuts down. And we would recommend working with Michelle Kenny, checking out Peace and Parenting on Instagram.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's our one-on-one coach, and she also coaches for my company, the White Picket Fence Project. She comes in and does quarterly workshops. She would be the person to ask. You can even reach out to her on Instagram and ask, and she'd be able to give you a simple answer. But we would need to know what's going on. So if your child is shutting down, it could be that you're role modeling that, and so your child has seen that. Like Cass said, the programming that happens between birth and 7 is really important. And so if you're shutting down, you're yelling, your children mostly won't yell if you haven't yelled. Our children, they sometimes yell because we went through a period of time where we were yelling at them. We weren't yelling at each other by the time we had our children, but we have yelled at them, and nothing major, but they pick it up, they absorb it. And so they yell. And of course, kids throw tantrums and all that, and that's normal. But for shutting down, I would say that what is the communication that you had? Were they being punished? Were they being condemned? Were they being shamed? Were they being blamed? Because that's going to cause them to shut down, or it could cause them to respond and react.
Let's talk about that for a second, guys. So that's really, really, really standard, right? Like a lot of us were spanked or put to, so punishment, right? Spanked, sent to your room, take something away. This is still prevalent today. You know, you're going to lose your iPad, you're going to do whatever. So one of the things that we've really learned is that punishment is disconnecting from your children. It's associating fear and shame.
Teaches them nothing but to go stew about how mean mommy and daddy are. It doesn't teach them, oh, I shouldn't do that again. Because if you think about it, what was the last thing you punished your child for? And did they do it again after they were punished? Probably.
Because they still
the punishment isn't working.
You also, if you give attention, I can't remember which author this was, but he says it's like if you give a dog a treat for peeing on the carpet, it's going to pee it again. If you take the treat away whenever he's doing something bad, he's not associating that with that. He's just associating attention with it. And that's why obedience school is actually more for owners than it is for dogs. We're not. Well, she's a dog expert, but I'm not. But
I'm just a dog lover.
Dog lover, sorry.
Yeah.
You know a lot. Anyway, so one of the things you really got to think about is and you can apply this to your marriage too, you punish your spouse because of lessons like that. Like you shut down or you lecture and you're yelling, right? Sometimes you'll stop with your responsibilities, right? And you'll be like, I'm not getting the coffee anymore because she said XYZ or whatever. It's the same thing. So even if you think it's crazy, because we're not parenting experts, apply it now in your marriage. We can't let you parent. Like when we're coaching, we can't let you punish your spouse. Absolutely not. This makes zero sense to move forward. Saving your marriage or saving yourself, right? You're not getting your needs met this way. In fact, you're getting all the needs you don't want met, right? So
Her name, Stacy, is Michelle Kenny.
I can see if I can type it in here.
Peace and Parenting on Instagram.
Lost the screen. Here we go.
I struggled with my son this morning, only wanting to wear pajamas and arguing so much with me. How do I help this? You let him wear his pajamas.
Peace and Parenting?
Peace and Parenting, at Peace and Parenting on Instagram.
Oh.
So I mean, is it just to daycare? Is it to school? Is it harming him in any way to let him wear his pajamas? It depends how important that is to you. For me, I have let my children wear whatever they want to wear, whether it's pajamas, whether it's they leave the house without a jacket. It's not life or death. All it's doing to argue is to break connection with that child. You just made a bunch of comments.
Oh, because
it's every platform.
Yeah. And guys, this doesn't mean, by the way, you let your kids do whatever you want.
No, you just have to choose you have to choose what battles you're going to face. And for me, pajamas, that's giving them the power to choose what they wear. I think that that's not the end of the world. I think it's actually healthy for them to choose that. Now, if he goes to school and he gets made fun of for wearing pajamas, he might not want to wear pajamas anymore. Or maybe he does want to wear pajamas, but eventually there's no 30-year-old going to work in their pajamas unless they're on Zoom. Like, right?
It's true.
You don't have to worry about your child not learning how to wear clothing. You're actually giving your child the power to pick.
That's true.
I
wanted to just go back because I didn't get a chance to say. So when you think about the punishment thing too, guys, I want you to understand, and this is going to go now I lost my thought because we moved on. Oh, I hate it when that happens. I get so excited.
How do you deal with a narcissist sociopath? Well, if he's diagnosed, then he should be getting help.
Are we still talking about your children? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Ooh, that'd be a tough one. I would look at how you're parenting.
Oh, by the way, so that's what I was going to say. So when you go to punishing, and this is for your spouse too, then what'll happen is when we do have a need or when your children have a need, what happens is you go to this people-pleasing mode because you just want to feel the love. You just want to feel appreciated, valued, and you don't want that fear-based reaction anymore. Your children are doing this, and your spouse will often, this will become a repeated pattern. And this is especially common with men because then they start tying in all the connection, right? And so just understanding that, you can start to think about why your husband is in, happy wife mode, people-pleasing, doormat. Most women want a man who's not a doormat. That's the whole point, right? And so, if you can understand some of this programming that we're talking about, this has been edited to where, he's looking for approval, which is why Kathryn mentioned gratitude earlier. One way that you can do that. And this goes both ways too. Most stuff does. But yeah, getting them away from this people-pleasing mode is not on you, but you hate it. And your kids are getting the wrong responses and learning how to do this exact same thing and building them up for the same future that you're trying for them not to have. Okay. Connection time. What are you talking about?
I want to also talk about the pajamas. So if you wanted to so we just learned this in one of our recent coaching calls, and it's about setting limits. So let's say you really didn't want him to wear his pajamas. And so you would set the limit and you'd say, okay, you're not going to wear the pajamas. We're going to get dressed today. And your son throws a tantrum. He starts screaming. You have to hold space for him. So that means you get on his level, but maybe that's sit on the floor. You don't leave him alone and you just allow him to scream. You don't correct his screaming. You don't correct his behavior. He's dysregulated and he's flipping out because he can't wear his pajamas. It might take 45 minutes. You sit there. You need to make sure that you're scheduling this tantrum. So if you want to set that limit, you let him react. You let him see that you're there for him for his big emotions. And then when he finally calms down, you say, okay, and now it's time to put your clothes on. But you have to give him all the time it takes for him to get all of those emotions out without you reacting. So either you let him do it because you don't really care. It's just pajamas. Like really, who cares? Maybe you don't let him to wear pajamas to church. Maybe you don't let him wear pajamas to a family photo, but he's just going to school. Who the fuck cares? And if you do care, then this is where you set a limit. well, we're not going to wear our pajamas today. We're going to wear clothes. He starts freaking out. I'm just going to repeat it again. You just let him freak out as long as possible. You say things like, I'm here for you. Yeah, that is hard. I can see why you're frustrated. Mama's here for you.
Let's apply this to husband and wife, because this is the same sort of thing that you have to do in the beginning. And um, Courtney asked the same sort of thing, wants to know what you can say when somebody's energy changes quickly and they get defensive and it starts attacking and they're deflecting and all that stuff. Well, it all starts with allowing the safe environment. Husband or wife, exactly the same thing. If you're the one growing, you're the one showing. And so that means that you're going to have to love them through it. It's the same thing. In Kathryn's case, back in the day when she started to figure things out, when I was starting to slip backwards, I was frustrated. She was learning a lot. I was like, I was angry and I was like, why now? Right. And Kathryn just loved me through it.
I held my own and I stayed strong.
So not unlike I did for the years prior, except for now we're in a position where you're actually applying the skills, not sort of haphazardly. Right. And of course, we don't mean the same violent tantrums like Briar recently. I think I mentioned last time, Briar bit me on my shoulder, angry.
Yeah,
actually bit me all over my arm. Never done that before. Because
I've never done that.
Well, kind of.
Well, sort of.
That's the good stuff, though. Yeah. So, yeah, you allow them to hold space for them. That's
without reacting poorly, or you take it away. So, Courtney, if your husband all of a sudden his energy changes, he gets defensive, be there for him. Don't get defensive back. Don't attack. Show empathy. Oh, honey, what just happened? What are you feeling right now? Or if he gets defensive and he attacks you, you're right. I did do that. That was really shitty of me.
Well,
don't say
she might not have done it either.
If you didn't, if he's getting defensive or attacking and it's not something that you can take responsibility for, then don't take responsibility. But you can validate his feelings. Yeah. It sounds like you just got really upset. What are you upset about?
Yeah, you guys got to understand, most of the time, defensive is the ground level, right? So most of the time when you're starting to defend yourself, okay, it's going to go one way or the other, right? You can stop, reel that in, and lead with empathy, love them through it, okay? And just be patient. Remember this, the scared little boy or scared little girl we talked about earlier just don't have the skills yet, right? And so if you don't have the skills, then their tantrum could go on for a little while, right? That's why our children have these long, long tantrums. But see, typically adults, even if you don't have the skills, overall, don't want to be angry for days. I was a really bad example, like a terrible example. But almost everybody doesn't need to learn empathy. They've just forgotten to be empathetic. They've stopped practicing empathy, compassion, right? And so you defend yourself because you're self-righteous. You're saving yourself, not your marriage. And so if you can start to practice empathy again, most of the time it's going to be a lot faster for a husband or a wife to kind of turn around. And Kathryn used to do all kinds of other things after too. She'd be so cute and she'd be like, hey, I'm your partner. So she'd love me through a little bit. And she'd be like, hey, I'm your partner. Because she recognized that the little boy in me, I'm on side. She'd squeeze my face. And, sometimes you jump on me and sometimes I'd be like, no, get off me.
I'm not a jungle gym.
Yeah, I'm not a jungle gym.
I'm like, you are actually.
Now I'm like, climb the F on
please,
me. Yeah,
please. Can I be your jungle gym, please?
So here's the thing, though.
We've come a long way.
Oh my gosh. So here's the thing. When you guys can start practicing this, then the other person will want to feel the love. It might not happen the first time, right?
Or the second time or the 100th time. Your husband might need 200 positive interactions of you showing up differently before your husband or wife accepts that behavior as being real and true.
Both of you, because you got to remember that both of you have stacked your bad skills. Both of you have stopped practicing the empathy. Both of you have blamed or shut down. Some of you don't even blame. You just shut down, right? There's different ways everybody handles it. But if you can understand that it's that scared little boy or little girl, how would you love them like you do with you should do with your children? And again, we're not the experts with the children, but yeah, it's game changing. The reason why is then the next step is you'll start to learn how to feel and express feelings or share your needs, right? And being able to say what's real without blaming, without saying you don't meet my needs. That's not the real stuff. The real stuff is not you owe me this. That's giving to get. You shouldn't even be in a relationship, any relationship in life, if you give to get, right? Think about it. So we run a business. Let's go to business for a second. If all we cared about was money, do you think we would be growing so fast? No, no. And it's the same thing when we owned a gym. The reason we were as good as we were was because we cared,
Yeah.
you know, like, so you're
And
not,
that's obvious to people. So it's obvious
Yeah.
to people about us, and it's obvious to people about you when it comes to giving to get. Even if they don't exactly know what's going on, there's some underlying feeling where they know that it's just not right. I'm
Yeah.
gonna answer Megan's question real quick.
Go.
Megan said, how do you help your partner go from doormat to partner without overcorrecting and having like a dictatorship? So Megan, I would say you come at that. First of all, stop correcting. You need your husband would need time, and you need to come at it with a very high level of gratitude. Would you say, honey?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Like,
overcorrecting, you don't
Excuse me.
have any place to be correcting your partner. When you have a really close relationship like we do,
Yeah.
we can correct each other, but we don't always correct each other. But when we didn't have a good relationship, any correction, whether he corrected me, and it was mostly me correcting him, it was just driving a wedge between us. It wasn't building connection. It was actually building separation.
Mhm.
The exact opposite.
And-
Come in with gratitude. When you married your husband, he had all of these flaws where you could have been correcting him, and you weren't, because you loved him past those flaws. So come in with a very high level of gratitude and stop correcting.
Yeah, I think so. Like, one of the things that I think there's affirmation, the words of affirmation people there's it doesn't matter. Just understand simply, a man, like, especially if the intimacy is gone, he's going down this path of I'm not good enough. And so, yes, it sounds like he's thrown in your face and he's angry as fuck, and it's your fault. That's what he's, according to him, and he's a narcissist, toxic, yelling, whatever. Everybody expresses however they express. It's not a man woman thing. It's how they express from how they were raised and how they were taught and what they know. And everybody's judgy about that. No, you only know what you know, right? And if everybody knew it, nobody would be following us, right? And so if you can start to give your partner the gratitude and edification, affirmations, build them up. Like, people spend more, like, we almost once a week, we're saying thank you to somebody, an email, a phone call, something, whether that's service, whether that's
Recognizing somebody for something.
a friend
Do it all
did
the
something,
time.
whatever. Yeah. And
it when you
almost
realize.
every time it's like we're blown away, and we appreciate the other one for doing that,
Mhm.
because it's so scarce in the world today. People would rather complain than say something great.
Yeah.
Right. Unless it's fake, right?
Yeah.
Bunch of fake crap on your social media posts, or I don't need any help when you're at church, right? That was a great message we saw recently. Like, it's crazy to me. So spend more time with that, and then it's connection over correction, right?
Yeah.
We learned that term from Michelle, actually, but I really love it. I'm giving it to my guys all the time. I love connection over correction. Most of the time, guys, other than of course there's holding each other accountable and all that, but it's kind of like the boundary stuff that we talk about. You're nowhere near ready. If your partner and you are missing the intimacy, and I mean not just physical, I mean like just intimacy, emotional intimacy, connected, then
corrections are not going to be received. You're
Yeah.
not going to be heard. You're falling
Yeah.
on deaf ears. We talk about that in my program. If you want to be heard, you need to hear your husband first. I just want to touch on something.
Yeah.
So my husband mentioned intimacy, and in the beginning he was talking about sex, not emotional intimacy. Wives, if you are not physically intimate with your husband, you might not feel like you need it at this stage in your life, but he does. And so that's something that if you're not recognizing needs to be fixed, that is going to be part of fixing all of your problems. Sex is not the be all and end all, but for men, it's a lot higher up than for women. And so please recognize that if you're having problems with your husband and you're not regularly having sex with him, whatever that looks like, there's going to be a build. You don't just go into having sex every day. You can't go from not having sex to having amazing sex every day. There is a build to getting back to where you want to be, whatever that is. Maybe it's 3 days a week is your max. Maybe it's 2. Maybe it's twice a day. Whatever.
I wouldn't even worry about that part
Whatever
right
it
now.
is for you,
you
need to be regularly being intimate with your husband, and there's some things that you're going to have to get over. If there's we had some sexual abuse issues. I had some sexual trauma to get over from my husband. I didn't ignore it. For a long time I did, but I didn't ignore it and sweep it under the rug. I addressed it. We addressed it so that I wanted to give my husband what he needed. I didn't know that I needed it anymore, but I mean, I do need it now. But I went through a period of time where I went through a period of time where I would just wanted to serve my husband because it was for him, but it needs to be fixed. So number one, you need to be doing it with your husband in some way, shape or form to address the trauma.
But
and then you also need to
things that are foundational first before
Yes,
that.
exactly. But you need to
Yeah.
recognize if your husband's not treating you properly, we can't blame it all on sex. But if he's angry, part of that is because he's not having sex. It's pretty simple. So don't just go do it. You don't just go have sex with your husband just because, but start recognizing that not having sex in your marriage is contributing to some of your problems.
Yeah.
It's probably contributing to some of your problems too. You just don't know it.
That's why I'm so passionate about including sex in my content. I think it's not talked about enough, and I think it's the checkered flag. It's like the supreme symptom that you're in a good place, right? And that you're in a great place, actually. Because if you're not checking it off a to-do list, you actually want to be intimate, you want to connect or be there. Sure, Kathryn's there for me lots of times when she's not exactly in the mood. She's just there for me. That's because
Out of love, though, not because it's a job.
yeah, it does not.
And then there's some days that
yeah.
he's there for me. Yeah, right. You're always ready to go.
I am,
but you know,
yeah.
but if I needed you to be there for me, you would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hands down. I mean, yeah.
What a hard job.
Have you seen her?
I've seen him. We have pretty easy over here.
We're gonna have to shut this shit off. All right. So Americo, it's exactly Americo's asking about when his wife becomes defensive and she deflects and then sarcastic. It's what we talked about earlier, but I love that you said the word sarcastic, guys. Use your wit for good. Don't use your wit as a weapon. It's falling in the affirmations, the edifications, the gratitude, the category. Like you shouldn't. So I don't know if Kathryn does this, but I have a list of rules that every marriage should live by that I give to my men in my program. And one of them is something that we recognized really early on. It's a sabotaging marriage tactic to be sarcastic and funny in a non-positive way. Okay.
Yeah, that's not cool.
That's just not cool. Like you're not getting anywhere. 7 positives to outweigh a negative. It's why you have to focus more on connection, being connected positively, right? To get over a lot of these negatives, especially if it's been traumatic or there's been a lot of problems in the marriage. Okay. A lot of these fights, like you got to undo. It's why we talk about it, when Kathryn didn't, or well, let's just use you guys. When your spouse doesn't believe you when you say something positive, it's because you've said things negative and you haven't said near enough positive. It's like why people need 12 hugs a day, right? Like they need to feel connected, right? Or is that kids? I don't teach you to give to
people,
a toe.
but it was Michelle taught us about kids.
That's right. That's where we got it from. I don't teach that. I think it's all about all kinds of ways of connecting. But you got to start using your words for good, please, for the love of God. You can't be teasing your spouse. Like you just can't be. And I know people argue this all the time, and I don't really care because people are also getting divorced. It's one thing you just shouldn't. We have other rules, like if we go out separately, like if it's after 10, we're going to meet up. Everything bad happens after midnight. Blah, 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 blah. People can argue this shit. And yes, we'll stay out later. We make a decision. We talk about it together, and then we do it.
Yeah, it's not like
these aren't, not all of it's
rule. Like if I was like, oh, I want to stay out with the girls later, my husband's like, okay, have fun. He's not gonna be like, you have to be by 10.
Excuse me.
He used to be like that.
Yeah, I did.
But not anymore. But it's just it's a healthy rule to have.
This is like you're gonna go down a respect path this way.
Yeah.
It's like checking in when you're out and you're not together, right? Like it's just a respect thing. Why? It's affirmation, right? It's like whether we like it or not, no matter what. I teach men they should not be looking for validation and approval from their wife. They should not be putting on but part of what I do is show men that when they love their wife the right way, she wants to send pictures of herself kissing me, little selfies or whatever. She wants to send a little note saying she misses me or give me the 15-second audio text about what's going on.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing right there, honey. You hit the nail on the head. So if I go out without him, I'm thinking of him. So I send him a message or I send him whatever, and I want to meet up with him. So if that's not where your marriage is and you just can't wait to get away from your spouse, then you should probably join our program.
100%. And
simple as that.
Yes, I had to do my work on insecurity.
Doesn't mean you can't have alone time. It doesn't mean that you can't have girl time. It's just that,
Yeah, and yes, you have to work on your own. Insecurity is a monster. You're going to have to take care of that. But there are things that you can do, just like we talked about earlier, leading with empathy to love them through it. It's crazy, like how bad it's gotten where it's like, oh, well, stop dealing with their baggage. They have to deal with their own baggage. They brought the suitcases into the marriage. You love them with the suitcases. You threw a bunch of shit in the suitcases, and then you're demanding now that they carry yours too. You guys got to get a hold of yourselves here. It's just not how it's ever going to work. Again, save your marriage, not yourself. That's it. And some of this is hard, but none of it's hard when you're a team, right? Just once you learn, it's just like anything else. Once you learn, guys, All right. Is the mentality?
It's the this for that mentality that causes problems.
Yeah, giving to get is what we're talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. You cannot give to get nowhere in life. And people are arguing this all the time, mostly men on my feed argue that. It brings them out of the woodwork. Like, huh? There's nowhere that you can give to get, man. You should that's like go back to the children. Okay, I'm gonna take care of your needs. Here you go. Here's your cup of water. Here's your food. Here's your milk. Here, let's go play at the park just to make yourself feel good. I know this because that's what I did. I would go to the park. One of the examples I give in my course, I would go to the park hoping that people would notice. So I was giving love to my children so that I would get external validation that I was a good dad because people would say they look cute or wow, they're adorable. Oh, it's so nice that you get to spend time with them. This is giving to get. I'm not building connection with my fucking children. How could I be doing that if I'm worried about other people? You guys got to take a deep dive look into yourself. You got to take a look at why are you doing what you're doing? Because that programming is it's changed the trajectory of your life. It's like when I say my parents paved the next 2 decades of my life. That means when I moved out, the next 2 decades fucking sucked, right? Now you don't have to go break apart the programming. You just need to understand what's happening, recognize it. Like I just said with the example, okay, I'm going to the park hoping that people will notice I'm a good dad. And then here's the problem with that, because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And then because you're in survival mode and you're saving yourself, not your marriage, you throw that in your partner's face. Yeah, well, I know I'm a good dad. Let's use the very first example today. Kids don't act like this when you're around or when you're not around, right? Well, yeah, well, I'm a fucking awesome dad because everybody tells me I'm so great at the park. Why don't you see it? Because I'm protecting myself in this example, thinking, oh, because I'm here, I'm not a great dad because the kids are acting badly. You see how this is all connected, guys? Is it kind of like weaving together?
5-minute warning.
Okay. So Jungle Jim, that was cute. Yeah, it's hilarious. I used to be like violently angry. I'm not a Jungle Jim. Smashing the house up, and
he wonders why our sex went away.
Yeah, it's true, guys.
You don't want me to jump on you?
This,
I'll show him. No, that's not what I thought,
Excuse me.
but that's what happened.
Well, that's what people do. You guys do this vindictive thing, right? And so we got to be way more careful with that. The build back, Aubrey, is always a challenge because you're undoing years of damage, right? But that's like when people go bankrupt, do they just go stay on food stamps forever? Do they rebuild their life? We did that too, right? It sucks, but again, if you're into the save your marriage mentality, you're thinking differently. You're thinking, well, what I'm doing now and what I've always done hasn't worked. Just like every other motivational thing you've ever heard. We didn't make this shit up. We had to do something different if we wanted to save our marriage.
I want you to answer Susan, and then I want to answer Megan.
How do you convince your partner to tap in this conversation? So one of the things, I really got to find it and delete it, but one of the things that I put out a while ago was share my content with your partner. And one of the things that I'm really learning is it works, but it takes men a lot longer, because the more that we're expressive of how bad our relationship was, how abusive it was, how toxic it was, expressing about the narcissism, anything, okay, the more type of person, right, that wants to share with her husband has a husband that was as angry as I was, okay, or can go back there. The control hasn't been there. So I think it becomes a little bit dangerous. I don't know if it's dangerous in your home, but what I mean is dangerous to get them involved. Like, I don't know if it's going to hold them back or what. So what I would suggest is simple. If you are a wife that needs help and your husband is not on board, you can't have, i.e. Susan, you're not in a position where you can even feel comfortable sharing this live video where we're just in love talking normal shit. It's not even a content or like a reel that's blaming him, right? Because that's what I do. I blame men for the same mistakes that I made, right? And that's why they get upset. If you're not in that position and you can't have that conversation, then I strongly suggest you reach out to Kathryn, because you're going to have to take the role of leadership if your husband's not on board. Now, that being said, we hear it all the time that apparently both partners are on board. We really believe that's almost never the case. However, that's joyous and incredible and freaking fantastic if you're both on board.
Yeah.
So if you can have that conversation, say, check out this couple, right? Like most of the time when people enter our programs, they feel like they are at least 75% living our marriage, some version of it, right? Maybe not as abusive. you know, maybe even not as sexless, maybe not even as toxic and narcissistic or whatever.
But there's some sort of thread of truth that's shining through where you're like, that is my marriage.
That's right. And the flip side is we get people that, man, they're close. It's just like we talk to them and they end up realizing that they're actually not that great. They're just glorified roommates or business partners, and they think they're doing that great. We're just missing this one thing. Well, no, because if you, again, it's the symptom. If you're at least wanting to be passionate, at least wanting to address, let's say it's hormone issues, for example. Well, that's because you have everything else in place, right?
You're not motivated to fix any hormonal issues if, and I'm going to go into Megan. So if your husband wasn't an asshole. So maybe if he wasn't an asshole, I would want to. This is going to be the last question, guys.
Okay.
So Megan, I'm with you on that. I used to say to him, like, when he used to yell at me and scream at me and we were getting in fights about sex, I'd say, this isn't helping. This is actually making things worse. I would try to tell him, like, and I thought I didn't think my husband was a huge asshole. And so your husband probably is an asshole. And you're right. If he wasn't an asshole, then you would want it more. So I'm not saying that you go and you just have sex with an asshole. Not at all. I'm saying that you just recognize that not having sex is a problem. It's a problem in your marriage and it's a problem for your husband. Right now, it probably isn't a problem for you because you don't want to go have sex with an asshole. So you probably could live without sex for the rest of your life. That's how I felt at times in my marriage. I didn't care, didn't want it, didn't need it, and definitely didn't want to have it with the asshole husband that I had. So I was like, if I'm not having it with him, I guess I'm not having it ever again. So what you're feeling is valid, but recognizing that that's a problem in your marriage is what I'm trying to say. And so there's a lot of foundational things that are going to lead into having that sexual intimacy again, but that is still one of the goals. It's not the be all and end all, but it's one of the goals. It's important for your marriage. It's important for your husband. And at some point, when all of these foundational levels are in place, it'll be important for you again too, and important for both of you together.
Yeah, I love that. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.